Well,
Hello, all you beautiful crystal souls, and welcome to the very first episode of
hippie
Crystal
bullshit. I can't do the full sign language with the cup in my hand.
All right, bullshit sign language. We should do that. That's a good idea. Let's do that.
I've learned that that's not actually what it is.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Hippie
Crystal
bullshit.
I'm Maggie Ruckus.
And I'm Rain Ruckus.
And this is my brother. And then you can do.
Okay, so we were going to do this episode about channeling, and that's what we prepared for, but our dad
Croaked yesterday.
Morning.
So, we're inspired.
So we want to talk about croaking.
From our perspective.
Yeah, I don't believe that there is death, so let's just get that out there.
For me, the concept of death is beautiful. It wasn't always that way in my perspective. Actually, with the help of you, Rain, I came to some new understandings when I was in my late teens about potentially what the life-death continuum really is like. And I realized that I had a lot of fallacies, a lot of things that I had learned or was taught from other people that said that this is the way that it is, or that no one knows anything. It's just a lot of mixed information coming at all of us from a very young age. So it was nice when you brought to my attention the principles of the Abraham-Hicks philosophies and how they perceive of the life-death continuum. Especially in preparation for our brother passing. How long ago now was that? It's a bit. It's been a bit.
7 years? I'm not sure.
It's been a while. And fortunately, I had Rain by my side during that experience, helping me to be grounded, because it was all a little new to me to understand that life is eternal and love is eternal, and the people that are quote unquote our ancestors, or the people that have come before and that have left their physical bodies behind, are still hanging out and conscious, and that we have access to a relationship with them on the other side.
Yeah, so how did, so let me talk about how I kind of got there, because I wasn't always at peace with death, and I'm not always now either, you know. It's sometimes, depending on the way you think about it, can be scary. The idea of it being painful is scary sometimes. But in general, I'm not scared of death anymore. I don't think of it as death. I think of it as just a transition. And I believe strongly, like I really believe, that consciousness exists. My consciousness in some form existed before I came into this physical body, and I believe strongly it will exist after. I don't buy the concept that the brain creates consciousness. I think that that's not true. I remember being scared of death. I remember what that feels like, to think that you have one life and then your
what?
consciousness ends. The moment I realized that I really wanted to get over my fear of death was when I was reading Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. And he outlines like these 6 fears. Fear of poverty, fear of that you have to overcome if you're going to live a successful life. Fear of losing love. I don't remember all of them, but the last one was fear of death. And I remember being really interested in this book, and every chapter I thought was really insightful and helpful. But then when I got to the fear of death, I remember feeling like it didn't really solve anything, you know? It just said you need to get over your fear of death. And I was really interested. I mean, I was reading this chapter word for word. I was like, how? How do you get over your fear of death? And there wasn't any real answer there, but for me, it came years later as I sort of went through my own evolution, and ultimately discovered Abraham-Hicks. I think that was probably the catalyst, although lots of experiences for me, personal experiences, led up to supporting that sort of shift for me.
Yeah, you were ready for it.
Yeah. So Abraham-Hicks, for those of you who don't know, this is a woman, Esther Hicks, who is a teacher, right? And the way that she teaches is she channels non-physical consciousness and wisdom. Which
is what our podcast initially was supposed to be about today.
Today's podcast, yes, about
so
channeling,
really,
and ultimately Abraham-Hicks, because that's my favorite channeling. I'm a Abraham-Hicks fan.
I'm an Abrahamster.
Abrahamster, yeah. But I like a lot of other, I think there's a lot of other wisdom and a lot of other channelings.
Which is why we want to start this podcast, so that we can explore other things and talk about all different types of perspectives, philosophies, studies.
Yeah, and the when I first started listening to Abraham-Hicks, the idea of channeling was really weird to me, and I didn't know what to think of it. But I was really open to learning things. I was listening to audiobooks a lot, and reading books like Think and Grow Rich, and I was just interested in everything. And this seemed really weird to me, so I was like, "Yes, please. That's weird. Let me see what that's all about." And I felt such a strong clarity and resonance with everything that was being said, almost everything, that eventually I kind of had to accept the channeling part of it. It's not like I, right from the start, thought, "Oh, this is channeled wisdom from, universal consciousness, so therefore it's true." No, for me, I was like, I don't know, but let me listen.
That's the weird part.
Yeah, let me listen to what's being said, and
let me not tell any of my friends that I'm listening to this.
Yeah, or tell them and freak them out a little bit. That's fun. So eventually I think I just came to the conclusion consciousness, I think consciousness probably exists outside of the human body, because this feels so true to me. And I mean, I don't know, what are my options here? Some lady is making it all up, and she's so good at it that she's able to speak these words that resonate with something deep inside of me in a way that nothing else does. But she's making it all up, and she's like schizophrenic, or she's really channeling something. And I looked into it. I looked at all the negative reviews, and I wanted to make sure this wasn't a fraud or whatever. And I know there's a lot of people who still think that, but I couldn't find anything that I thought was legitimate. All I found were people who were criticizing it because they just didn't like it. Or because their wife got into it, and then they didn't see eye to eye anymore, and their wife left them or something, and so they're pissed at Abraham-Hicks. So
now, at that point of your life, you had already been meditating for a long time, because you were through the knowledge received by Prem Rawat-Guru Maharaji. Mm-hmm. How young were you when you started meditating and finding peace within?
Yeah, so I learned his meditation when I was 20 or 21, and I was pretty diligent with it. So his meditation is 1 hour every day.
Yeah.
Which Abraham-Hicks says 15 minutes is enough. You don't need too much, but
it's still a daily practice.
Sort of true, actually. I don't do a whole hour anymore, but 1 hour every day. And I meditated an hour every day for years, and got more and more in tune with it, and got to the point where it was like a drug for me. And I kind of went overboard with it. Mm-hmm. I had days where sometimes I'd meditate a few times a day, an hour each time, and it'd get better and better, so I'd feel really high by the end of the day. And then there was a few times where I was just I'm going to meditate, and then eat breakfast, and then meditate, and then go and do something, and then meditate, and then go have lunch, and then meditate.
So that must have prepared you for the type of understandings that you were ready for when you heard what Abraham had to say. It resonated. You said it resonated on every level of your being. Most of what they said, because maybe some of it you weren't ready for, didn't feel comfortable with at the time, but it was a resonance that you felt in your body of there's really something here.
Right, you feel it.
It's a truth that's a reverberation almost in your body. when you were hearing them talking about it. And then Abraham talks a lot about death. They talk a lot about the life-death spectrum, and one of their primary, I would think, goals is to help us, we humans here on the physical plane, to understand that life is eternal. Was that message something that you were ready to hear right from the beginning, or because of your time researching with Napoleon Hill?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, I wasn't trying, that's not what I was looking for in the Abraham stuff, but
I'm sure you found a lot more than what you thought you were looking for.
Sort of like, I mean, so maybe we should watch an Abraham intro video.
Yeah.
To sort of go over like what the basic philosophy is, so you can all understand how it might help you with your fear of death. To sort of like, because it's a perspective that if you believe it, kind of soothes that, because consciousness exists before and after, and there is no death in that perspective. So let's
roll a clip.
Watch an intro video here. Play.
What happens to us when we transition?
You leave everything that has ever bothered you behind, and you reemerge into the fullest alignment of that which you are, and you celebrate with all of us. And then you focus upon the things that have always been important to you, but you do it in an attitude and a vibration of non-resistance. So you are at your most steady, consistent joyousness then. You don't have to wait until you transition to do that. It's just easier then, because there's not so much nowness and isness that you feel responsible or obligated or committed to give your attention to.
When we lose our physical form, you
don't lose it.
Well,
you romp joyously beyond it.
We do what?
And you don't look back.
Okay.
You don't look back and you don't say, oh, I was so cute. You don't do that. Because there isn't anything about you then that is missing.
Do some of us stay here and some of us not? Because it sounded like, Jerry's hanging around with Esther.
Everybody. No one leaves. No one leaves. No one ever leaves. No one ever leaves. No one ever withdraws their attention. That's why things get better and better and better and better. That's what infinite intelligence is. That's what the support of that which all of you have is about. This is the leading edge. This is where we're all looking. This is where we're all looking.
And those of us that stay behind in physical form
stay behind.
Well, are in physical form. Can we hear or see or sense those that transition?
If you are in the vibrational vicinity of them. If you're missing them, no. If you are aware of their existence and in the vibrational vicinity, then your interaction with them is frequent.
Very good. Very
what
good.
A clip.
What a clip.
What a
wow.
clip.
Love you, Abe.
You were consciousness before this physical body? And so the general concept, right? Let's just go over the general
basics.
Concept. You were consciousness.
Vibrational source energy is how Abraham says.
Source energy. I like that.
Yeah, source energy. They say the quality of the energy is vibrational. So we are essentially vibration. Our consciousness is vibration. And it is eternal. And expanding and growing. And pure positive. So those are sort of qualitative terms that they use for the consciousness, right? It's pure positive energy.
Pure positive, love. God is love. Its source is love.
You find it in pretty much any religion. It's just God is love, almost. Consciousness is love. At the really core foundational tenets of most religions is that benevolence that's there, that creative power that exists in our universe, and the tie, the chi that ties us all together, that's in all material things as well.
Yeah, and it's not just religions that sort of agree with this perspective. Everything is vibration. Any of the major
quantum physics,
sciences will tell you that now. Everything
neurology,
is frequency. Everything is vibration.
Yeah,
all particles exist in the vibrational sort of non-physical state until your consciousness observes them, and then they sort of collapse into a particle. But it's still vibration.
Yeah.
And everything is vibration. So consciousness is sort of part of that, maybe the source of that, really.
And Abraham talks a lot about meditation being a life hack, so to speak, for quickly adjusting the frequency of your point of attraction, how you are in the moment oscillating or vibrating. They use the analogy a lot about a radio. I love that analogy. For me, it just helps me understand that my mind is almost like the dial. I can tune in to any type of frequencies that I want to, any type of channel, which is funny, like the word channeling, because that's...
Wow, I just got it.
Being able to meditate or attune, because in my practice now, I don't think meditation is the only way. It's a really good way. But some days for me, journaling is my preferred, or walking and talking to my voice recorder and navigating the frequencies and being able to feel, okay, I could say that better. So it's a lifestyle. Once you start practicing becoming aware of your point of attraction. And then meditation is a really powerful tool for just a sort of a big adjustment, at the beginning of your day or whenever you manage to do that.
Yeah, so I think that meditating regularly, an hour a day for years, which I did, and there was a big chunk of time there, 6 or 7 years, where I didn't miss a day, even when I was sick, maybe 1 or 2 days.
This is a really good track record.
It was pretty
impressive, honestly.
Impressive. I was impressed with myself because I'm not that consistent with anything else. So, but I think that what that did for me is it put me in touch with my feeling, right? I could, I knew what it felt like to sort of align with Source. And I got more and more, I get deeper and deeper into the subtleties of it. I think so the more you practice aligning and feeling alignment, the more you're aware when you're not in alignment, and also the more you're aware when you're resonating with something, which I think is a huge value. It's a huge benefit to people, to me, to be able to tell when you're resonating with something. And meditation does help with that, I think.
I think that what you're saying, if I'm right, is the resonating on sort of a harmonic frequency with something. But I think equally as valuable is understanding when you're resonating in a dissonant way. If you're sort of pinched off from the pure positive consciousness,
coin,
which most people are resonating with the fear of death, which kind of ties back into all of this, is like the perspective on death is one of the lowest philosophy or, mass consciousness narratives that existed in my life. At least I was terrified of death for a long time.
Sort of
super upset about it.
Common perspective of it is really out of alignment.
And you probably had
death at all.
You probably had a lot of that before you started meditating, maybe during it, but then when you finally oscillated yourself upwards high enough to a point where you weren't maybe as focused on those narratives that you held or were taught, so you were maybe available to receive a new idea when Abraham presented it to you by being so open in your vibration from all of the meditation that you did. Because that's a hard one. That's one that, I'll have a lot of very spiritual friends, but it's sort of a missing piece in a lot of people's lives to have still this blind spot,
Yeah, if you don't actually meditate a lot and practice, it's all conceptual. Because you have to learn, it's like riding a bike or something. You have to start to learn what's going on inside of you. And you have to stop the momentum in your mind.
Yeah. So if you think you have a belief or a knowledge of what death is, that's a very strong point of attraction that you've practiced for a long time, usually.
Yeah.
And that momentum of that is, and meditation clearly is one of the greatest ways of helping to piece apart those narratives, because you're just giving your mind a break.
Well, it also puts you in a state of allowing, right? So then you can allow something in, like I did with Abraham-Hicks, right? And
Well,
you know,
I
that's
love
life, really. I mean, life, I think, is really slowly about, you have these things that you want, and these things you've kind of created in your future, maybe, and they're trying to come, they're coming, but you kind of have to get ready for them.
Yeah.
And it takes a while sometimes. Our beliefs can just be so all-encompassing and so rigid. And I mean, I know that's still true. I'm sure that there are things that I believe that are hippie crystal bullshit.
But that's the joy of life to me now, is figuring out where my narrative, my iOS, if you will, is buggy and beginning to let go of some of those things and replace them with better perspectives that serve me in new ways. It's almost like you're at a new altitude when you do that. You can see from a new height or perspective, and that is a really fun, awesome experience, even in the minutia. Like, just little perspective tweaks I geek about now.
Yeah, so if you truly believe that consciousness exists outside of the human body, the fear of death just goes away.
And
because the fear of death is a fear of endedness. It's a fear that everything's going to stop. And that is a terrifying thought. Honestly, the idea that everything will just stop and then nothing ever, forever. Yeah, worst fucking thing you could possibly imagine. That's terrible.
And I think the shift in perspective is the first piece. Opening your mind to the possibility that there is a life continuum outside of a physical body. But for me, what really did it was when our brother passed, and we already had a lot of the concepts. Concepts is the first step. You gotta kind of frame your mind around something to really start to get ready to believe something, but the knowledge.
I'm gonna pour one out to my homie.
Your homie,
For you, Jake.
He's the one that named this podcast. So no, that was your idea, right? Hippie crystal bullshit.
I mean, I'm sure Jake had used that term a lot. Hippie crystal
I
bullshit.
heard him using that. I thought it was super funny. But then the next phase of understanding, to bridge from believing something to knowing something, is life experience. And Abraham says that all the time. Life experience teaches like nothing else can. So to prove it to myself that life is eternal, when my brother died or croaked, I had an opportunity to reach for him in his now, which is not in his body. Which was a challenge for me, because I was used to perceiving him in a certain way and reaching for him in his physical form, because, his personality, the way that all the resistance that he had, all of the alignments that he had, the sort of combination of vibration that made up Jake in physical form was different than the non-physical version of him, the version of him that is now. Similar with how I'm experiencing Dad.
How are you experiencing Dad?
When we were in the hospice room, I was experiencing him in his funniest, silliest form, just tap dancing his way through the halls and outside, and just doing anything he could to get my attention and like, oh, look over here. It was hilarious, and it's challenging for me to share those experiences verbally with people, because I don't know. It's like, I don't really know how to explain what's going on for me still to this day, but I try to tell Dan, my partner, about it. I try to tell you, like, when it's in the moment happening, just to make it more normal. So normalizing it is like the next step. Because for a while, I felt like such an outsider. You and I were, when Jake was going through the end of his life, and then after, I felt that we were in our own little bubble of understanding, and that was a very isolating experience in a way, but totally worth it. I mean, I would not have had it any other way. It was such a beautiful experience.
Isolated
from everybody else.
Sort of a really, really dissonant perspective.
Right.
It's fine. It's totally fine.
Totally fine.
But I was there for a long time in my life, and I get it.
I have memories of us holing up during, our brother had cancer, so there was a lot of time it was stretched out, the whole process of him croaking.
Just like our dad.
Yeah, just like Dad. Our dad
We
had
had
dementia and heart disease
yeah.
and all kinds of
Years.
stuff. It's just a long road. So fortunately, it was much less public. I feel like with
Yeah.
Jake, there was just so many people in and out of the house the whole
Right.
month that
Which
he was
beautiful
dying.
in
It
many
was.
ways. A lot of beautiful
Communities.
people. Yeah.
Such a special thing that we have.
Yeah. So about Jake, yeah. So that was a big experience for you that sort of shifted the way you think, and it was one of many, many experiences I've had that have just sort of screamed to me that there's far more going on here than the sort of traditional view of like, well, you know, or the scientific view of, well, you know, billions of years ago, everything, like nothing exploded into everything, and then random particles bounced around and made all of us, and then that made consciousness, and then that's us, and we're just going to die, and that'll be the end of it. Like there's more to it than that. I think that almost, I mean, that's as ridiculous, as absurd in many ways as any religious Genesis story, I think, right? So if that's what you believe,
Right.
fine, but like, don't be too condescending about other religions because it's just as sort of like crazy in my opinion. But I have many experiences that have just sort of telegraphed to me and been indicators to me that there's much more going on. And the one with Jake was the whole experience in many ways, but the night that he passed away, I've been living in the same house. We've been living in the same house together as he was sort of passing. And I had kind of been staying to myself a lot of the time, but helping him like with getting into the bathtub and this sort of thing. But I hadn't been really involved with a lot of other people or with the caretaking. And one day, I just felt like sitting next to him. I had sat next to him, but I just felt like sitting next to him for hours. I sat with him and held his hand. And I remember thinking to myself, what's going on? Like, I have this feeling in me that I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Like, this is where I want to be. I kept thinking, oh, maybe I should go, like, get some work done or do something. And I kept thinking to myself, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing right now. And it's not like there was any signs that he was passing, more so than the last few days or weeks. But I just had this feeling that I wanted to be there. And so I stayed by his side and sat there for like 8 hours. It was like a crazy amount of time. And people kept coming in and out and sitting and leaving. And I just sat there. And then sometime around midnight or 1, some nurse showed up. And I got up to talk to the nurse. And me and my mom and his wife were talking to the nurse. And I looked over and I didn't see him breathing. And then I told the nurse and she went and checked and he had passed. And to me, that was like, I mean, I could talk about a dozen experiences that are similar to this that just indicate there's something else going on. Yeah. But this was like, to me, just like the icing on the cake. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I felt he was going. You know, the same thing happened with Dad. Just the night that he passed, we were at the hospice with him, and I was sitting next to Dad holding his hand, and it felt the same way. And you heard me. I said, I think he's going tonight. Yeah. This feels like it felt when Jake passed, and he went that night. So we're all connected for sure. Others, I've heard other people talk about crazy ass stories, being connected and feeling what other people are feeling or going through miles apart, you know. Mothers recognizing when their kids are in danger and all this stuff.
And it doesn't change when they're outside of their bodies. I mean, and our brother Jake, I don't talk to him all the time or anything. I mean, probably, to be honest, way more than I know. Way more than I'm cognizant of. I'm interacting with him. But I ask him questions sometimes. Like, can you prove to me that you're real? You know, I need to connect a little more with you, and I'm open and I'm receptive to it. And then he'll just drop a truth bomb. He's like, I'm as real as you are right now. And to me, I'm like, okay. I get you. I see you. I'm here. I'm here. I understand that. I believe that I'm real. I believe I'm here, at least. And him saying to me, I'm also right here. Hello.
Yeah. So what is that? So how does that feel to you though? Like, because to me, it's like, it's really, I'm not so good at differentiating my conscious thoughts and maybe thoughts that I'm picking up, tuning into from Jake or Dad.
I'm not trying to say I'm an expert. I just can sometimes recognize when it's an involvement of multiple consciousnesses, like mine. But then there's a lot of, there's a can of worms, because we can open the door to saying, when we're back in non-physical energy, we're just a big old consciousness soup. You know, we're just all swirling together.
Right. Yeah.
And
where's the individuality?
I believe that
collective?
it's from my limited physical perspective, it's challenging for me to fully understand how the non-physical realm works. You know, what does that look like? It's all just now. It's like there's a broad perspective. Abraham talks a lot about broader consciousness, a consciousness that doesn't have a point of focus like we do in physical form, which is one of the reasons I think we want to be here, is to have that physical point of focus, that singular focus. But when you're non-physical, you can focus omnipotently, it seems. Like you're able to see everything all at once in a way that is powerful and beautiful and special. And how am I to know what that's like until I do croak myself? I mean, maybe a bit in meditation or a bit in psychedelics or something like that, but I don't think it's nearly the same. And the more that I understand personally that I don't know, and the more that I open myself to receiving intuition that's proving to me little nuggets of, wow, you really are interconnected more than you might think. So I'll just share this, and I haven't even told my partner this, but when the day that Dad passed, well, I don't know, he's coming to terms with a lot of the things that I talk about all the time, but he might think it's kind of weird. He'll see it. But when we were...
Remember that Puss in Boots gag through the whole second movie?
Oh yeah, that's
first movie?
For sure.
You haven't told Dan?
Well, it's all so fresh. I mean, he died yesterday. So when we got back to the house, Dan started, Dan was really present with me the whole day. He was just wanting to be there with me and wanting to experience, just support. And oh God, it was so, so sweet. And I was like, I'm going to lay down and I'm going to take a nap. And he started giving me like a little foot massage. And just backstory, my dad used to massage my feet all the time. Like it was just how he would wake me up in the morning to go to school. It was just a thing. It was like his love language was massage and touch. And it was so sweet and just really, I don't know, something that Dan doesn't do a lot, to be honest. And the fact that I knew that Dad was loving on me through Dan. It was undeniable to me. It was like the things that Dan was doing were completely specific to the things Dad did to me.
Would you say Dan was channeling?
I know for a fact he was.
Yeah.
And he didn't ever meet Jake,
channel.
and Dan channels some of the mannerisms and things that Jake does too. And it's interesting to me that Dan, my partner, is able to give me love, support, insight, joy, opportunity, fun through my quote unquote ancestors, or I don't even know what the right word is, family members that are on the other side, loved ones. Probably more people than I have any idea are interacting with me through the physical people around me.
More people than are physical, probably.
Oh, totally. I just think that, I'm just starting to really accept how interconnected we are with the non-physical in a practical way. It just is, and the degree of it is something that I'm starting to notice a lot through Dad just in the past day, because it's trippy. It's trippy to experience Dad through other people. It is, but it's cool also.
Well, I think we're rolling. Our dad loved cigars.
And sandhill cranes,
which
are right
6 giant sandhill
They're
cranes.
so pretty.
flying above us right now.
Oh,
the sunlight and the golden sunset
man,
light.
oh man. That's really pretty.
And so, in honor of our Father,
Light one up. Dude, he's gonna really be helping you enjoy cigars even more than you already do.
yeah, I feel like he guided me to the cigar.
That one specifically.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that that I really enjoy about understanding that non-physical is accessible and kind of inevitably accessible to me. It's just happening all the time. Is understanding that I have access to insight, perspective, and insight. I've got leverage. I got eyes in the sky.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, we all do. And the more that you trust that.
In fact, I think it just is happening naturally for everyone all the time, except when we get in our own way.
Right.
We start to get all
And
out
we
of
stop
whack.
trusting
Yeah.
that everything is leading us to exactly the things that we most want and the desires and the unfolding of our own evolution.
I think that most people are being guided from their source around all sorts of obstacles every day, and none of us know it.
Yep.
We all just have no idea that we just missed that that accident or that terrible person or something.
Yeah.
And obviously sometimes it happens. Right?
Yeah. Well, sometimes we're not so able to be guided. I think the resonance that we're holding, the point of attraction, the frequency that we're oscillating on or channeling or tuning into matters a whole lot. And even if we're not that attuned to source energy, inner being, God, call it what you will, we're still not disconnected. We're always connected to some degree until...
We're not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience, but it's all spiritual. It's all an extension of spirit. So there's no getting away from it.
And it would serve us all a lot to deliberately tune to the channel we want to experience.
Amen.
You're going right for the camera. It's beautiful. For Father.
That was perfect.
For Father. Stay tuned next
Next week.
episode. Next episode.
All right.
We'll talk about channeling.
More channeling. Maybe
Talk
some
about
other
all
stuff.
kinds of shit.
And how to follow your guidance. How do you even do that? How do you know you're resonating with something?
For future reference, we also want to talk about some things that we don't fully understand. And we want to...
Plenty of those.
Yeah. We want to just do a little swim in the ethereal waters.
We'll talk about proof that consciousness exists outside of the body in the CIA remote viewing program,
That
where they
shit's
had
cool.
psychics remote viewing for them to discover secrets, enemy secrets.
The Monroe Institute, is it
The
called?
Monroe Institute was the institute that started it and was hired by the CIA, or maybe it was funded by the CIA. I'm not sure.
We're going to talk about that.
Talk
We're going
about
to talk
that.
about structured water.
Oh, we have so many
Ugh.
great topics.
Do not get us started on structured water.
Bye, Felicia.
Okay, we're done.